Okay. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to first welcome all of you finally with one of my lecture, which I rarely get with all of you. So the topic for today is mineral metabolism, and I'm sure at the end of this lecture you will be 100% sure to differentiate few things which we were confused before. For example, why we need the minerals if the vitamins are still there, and what is the main differences, for example, vitamins switching to minerals and minerals switching towards vitamins. The vitamins, I think Dr. Hashim has already gone through with you. So my focus will be more on minerals, inshallah, for today's lecture. So what we got here is, sorry, what we got here is basically three learning outcomes only, which is to define and enumerate trace elements, to describe the function of trace minerals, and describe the deficiency diseases, toxicity, and daily requirement of trace minerals. So just like normally we used to follow up, I want all of you to just listen me 5 minutes first for the conceptual knowledge, and then we will go to the factual knowledge. Okay, first of all, whatever I'm presenting here, there's no conflict of interest. The slides are really from the books and articles, and we have acknowledged them online. So it's not an issue if you want to share these slides. Okay, anyways, remember that we have the vitamins which are coming from the organic sources, from the plants or from the animals. So the main difference between the vitamins and the mineral is number one, the source, organic versus inorganic. Minerals can be coming from the inorganic sources. The second difference is minerals are either the integral part of some molecules or they are a part in enzymes. Okay, they cannot act individually. So these two main differences you have to keep in mind before we move on. Well, when we talk about the minerals, the most important few facts which you need to remember, we have the in our normal life we have the carbon, we have hydrogen, we have oxygen, we have nitrogen. So these four things you keep in your mind, and then beside these four things all other essential, remember we go back to the previous basic concept. We have the atoms, we have the ions, or we call it anion and cations, we have the radicals, then we have the molecules. We said that any charged atom is called ion, ion. Pronunciation in Malay is a little different. When we talk about the molecule, a radical is a charged molecule. For example, SO4 minus 3, okay, PO4 minus 2. So these are all molecules which are basically charged molecules. So we call them radical. So all these radicals and all these anions and cations, basically, they do have a part of the minerals which are coming from different sources, different inorganic sources. Most probably from your diet, which you are taking in every day as a part of your necessities and nutrition. Okay, well, now the first concept is the difference between vitamins and minerals. Second thing is you must remember that there is a macro minerals and there is a minor minerals, or we put in a more different way, we have the macro minerals which will be carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, all those kind of things. And then we have the micro minerals. In the micro minerals, what we have very important is we divide into two parts. The first part is if we need the micro minerals more than 100 microgram per day or 100 milligram per day, then we call them macro minerals. Macro trace or the other word name for the micro is trace elements. Okay, so remember, don't confuse micro minerals. The other name is trace element. If the trace element we need more than 100, it will be the major. If it is less than 100, it will be the minor. So we'll go through in the slides after this. Okay, this is the third concept. Fourth concept is that these minerals, they are a part of all majority of our enzymes in our body. So either many of our proteins and enzymes, they have a part of mineral in them as a structural unit. For example, a structure of hemoglobin, if you remember, we have the iron inside that heme molecule. So similarly, there's different actually molecules inside the humans basically, which are basically having very strong mineral integrity as a part of the structure. So second thing, if they are not a part of the structure, they are usually, and they are obviously, they are a cofactor in many of the biological reactions. So this is our fifth concept now. So either the mineral is used as a cofactor in our body, or a mineral is going to be used as a part of the structure of some specific protein. This protein most probably will be the enzyme in our body. So this is the fifth concept. Okay, now we move on. Anything which is used normally, remember, anything which is normally used, we said, is very good if it is within the specific value. If anything is used more than normal, it is called abuse. So if you are going to take it less than normal, these minerals will give rise to different kind of diseases or deficiencies in your body. But if you are going to take it more than normal and you over take the dose or abuse your the concentration of these minerals, then you're going to get the toxicity. So the term is toxicity. So this minerals taking in a low amount can result in what we call deficiencies. In a high amount, they give you toxicity. Are you all okay? Can you listen me?
Yes,
Yes.
doctor.
Okay, so these are the major six concepts which we have to cover. Yes, because vitamins is already covered by Dr. Hashim. I'm not going to touch them, but we'll follow up with the other all aspect I've gone through. We'll try our best to finish this lecture maximum within 10 to 15 minutes, inshallah. So I just need a little concentration from you. What we have covered is the concepts which I want all of you to remember, in your minds for future, which you are going to be used in form of pharmacology, biochemistry, physiology, and especially for toxicology later. But we are going to discuss now a little bit factual knowledge, which might be you needing for the examination purpose. Okay, now we move on. What we have here is that we know that in our body we have four major macromolecules, which is carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acid. Very basic, huh? So we do have their example. Carbohydrate, we did study, they have monosaccharide, disaccharide, polysaccharide, lipids, they have different types. Proteins have different types. Nucleic acid have different types. Now, remember, you go back to the structures of their enzymes, and you will remember basically lot of basically minerals are integrated somewhere in their structure also. Now, this is our what four major molecules or the biological molecules we have in our body on which our all body is functioning. Remember, we have explained in one of the previous lecture that we have more than 3,000 plus, 36,000 plus. We have the genes. From there, we got a metabolites, which are nearly 2,800. From these 2,800, coming from 36,000 genes, those metabolites are the functioning units of the body. So this is how we getting the macromolecules from our genes actually. Okay, now we did go through this slide before. I've just put in the conceptual knowledge few minutes back. We did have the atoms, we do have the compounds, ion, radical, and molecule. And yes, when we discuss about the supplementary facts, remember we have the nutritional fact and we have the supplementary facts. They're two different things. So normally, in when you go and buy something, you'll get something the supplementary facts, and you get all the vitamins, everything up there. Down there, you got all the minerals here. Starting example. Sodium chloride, calcium, potassium. I'm just giving you one example. So in this example, if you see the units, the vitamins are put like the enzymatic units. When you put the minerals, they come as a milligram. So remember the concept of atoms, compound, ion, radical, molecule. If we integrate all of them together into the supplementary facts, so these supplements comprised of basically atoms plus compounds or radical molecules. For sure, when they're in the body, they got dissociate, and we need basically the radical or basically ion as a acting unit majority of the times. Well, what we have here is that what is the importance of minerals? Remember, we will go back to our physiological phenomena, and we have intracellular fluid, we have the extracellular fluid. We do have a new concept of metalloenzymes and metal activated enzyme. In this whole lecture, to be very specific, the concept of metalloenzymes and metal activated enzyme is the most important for all of you. Okay, now intercellular fluid, we have a very specific, the ECF and ICF, the composition is there. It's not our talk for today, but remember there is a difference. If you change a little bit, for example, what will happen, the whole pH will change, and this change in pH will needed to be compensated in a very different way, and body has to go through a complex series of the physiological buffer and all those kind of things. So it's not an easy job even altering only one specific mineral based ion or radical in your ECF or ICF. Okay, now what is metalloenzyme and metalloenzyme we'll go through. Okay, now the next concept is what are the dietary minerals? By definition, chemical elements in common organic molecules. Remember, we said the major are carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen when we talk about the concepts. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen. So other than four of them, which are essential and we need them in our diet, they are considered to be the dietary minerals. So we do have hydrogen, we do have boron, carbon, these all things which we have highlighted here. These are considered to be the dietary minerals. Okay, now the difference is what I mentioned you, we have the macro minerals and the trace minerals. Macro minerals and the trace mineral, all the major minerals and the micro minerals. Micro minerals, the other name is trace minerals. Sometimes if you get in the exam, they ask you that can you please define what are the micro minerals, and please give example of two. So remember, they're asking you about the trace mineral. So this term is synonymous. You can get the trace mineral or you can get the micro mineral together. Okay, these are some of the examples what we do have here. For example, we start up with for example, with the water. So in the water, there is a specific, remember in water we have hydrogen and oxygen considered to be a mineral source, and then these are the major sources. Then daily requirement is already there. So what are the functions? Water is a universal solvent. We all know this thing. Similarly, we move down. We have the sodium. We need the minimum quantity we need is 100 gram. Is present in table salt, and sorry, the daily requirement is 1.3 to 3.3 grams per day. So it is involved in osmoregulation, membrane potential, mineral metabolism, and many other things actually. This in this specific case, if you see the example here versus down there, so any of these minerals, if you need it more than 100 milligram per day, it will be considered as macro element. If we need it less than 100 milligram per day, then it will be considered as micro element, or they will call the trace elements. So remember this thing, this table, you have to just go through yourself. And then you do have, for example, can you look at the cobalt down there, the cobalt down there? So this cobalt you need in a very low concentration. We need only traces. Tapi the vitamin B12 cannot work. Even it's a vitamin B12 cannot work without this cobalt. So basically it is coming as a part of the vitamin B12. So similarly, some of the examples, even the vitamins, they need the minerals to be integrated and as a cofactors many of the times. So these are some of the examples which you need to go through. Remember, all of these examples are not going to get you, for maybe for the exam or something. But at least when you go through your, other all, because I feel you have already covered majority of them in different lectures. This lecture is more a highly conceptual kind because you need to know what is the difference between all of these things. Huh? So I'll just move on to the next slide. So if you need any help, please, you can come back to me, you can ask me, or you can post any question. Okay, now, so we have the inorganic enzyme cofactors. So remember, 1/3 of all enzymes require a metal ion for catalytic function. This is what we are discussing, that majority of the cases, even the minerals are a part of different proteins or different structures, molecule in our body. In other cases, majority of the cases, they are basically the cofactor for many of our reactions in the body, in which a lot of enzymes they basically need it basically. So then we move on to our next slide. These are some of the examples. Let me go through. There are some of the examples which you need to basically focus on. For example, when we talk about magnesium, it is involved in the substrate binding in lot of signaling reactions, and is the enzyme normally it act as a cofactor are the kinases class. Calcium is involved in hydrolysis and act as a substrate activation. Potassium is involved in the structure stabilization of pyruvate kinases. Similarly, iron is involved in cytochromes. Zinc is involved in DNA binding. So these are few of the examples. Remember, this slide is very important. If you cover this slide, any of the examples, if you need in the future for exam anything, you can cover even through this slide actually. So many examples are already there when we talk about minerals as a cofactor. So inshallah, I think it's very straightforward. Okay, now the definition we'll be talking about, the first one is the metalloenzyme. If any enzyme or protein in which the mineral is integrally bound, or mineral is a part of their structure, and without that mineral, that protein cannot be formed. So this kind of enzyme is called metalloenzyme. Again, for protein is needed a specific mineral to be a part of their structure. This protein is called metalloenzyme. But if, for example, protein is not needing a mineral as a part of their structure, but the mineral is needed for the activation or as a cofactor for that specific enzyme, then this is called metal activated enzyme. So if you remember that whenever we talk about enzymology, enzyme always have an enzyme kinetic, they have the the rate of reaction, reaction order, all those kind of things. So when we talk about the metal activated enzyme, the term is that these minerals has to be in equilibrium with all these enzymes. Just focus on the basic ideology of enzymatics. So this is what we have to go through when we talk about the metal activated enzyme. So I'm sure in the start previously, Prof. Nadigar already covered the enzymology. So just go back, think about all those basic concepts, and you have to integrate back into this definition. Okay, now these are few of the differences between metal enzyme and metal activity enzymes. For example, metal activated, the metal is in equilibrium. Metalloenzymes, metal firmly fixed into the protein. Number two is activated by adding metal ion. Adding metal has minimal effect, means if you already have a metalloenzyme but you add that same enzyme to that solution in vitro, it will not work basically. Okay, then we have the metal lost on isolation. Metal stay bound and removable by chelators. Number four, no Schuh-Smith with protein, the integral number per protein. Then we have the electrostatic bonding. They have the coordinate covalent bonding. I remember they have the ionic, what we call the sharing versus transfer of the ions. Number six, we have the multiple metal binding sites. They have the limited number, generally one. For example, you already have an example of iron in heme basically. Then we have the binding sites, and angles are irregular. Binding sites are very fixed. When you talk about the protein always have a very specific function and structure. So mostly group 1A or 2A metals, remember in the periodic table, for example, sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Mostly third transition metals, zinc, ferrous, uh, cobalt, and copper. So these are few of the examples. This table is very important. Please, I'm highlighting few things. This table is very important. Please do go through this before your exams, inshallah. It's a very important table. Okay, then we have some examples of the metalloenzymes. I will just go through only one or two. For example, the zinc is we need it for the dehydrogenases, RNA, DNA polymerases. These are all examples of metalloenzymes. At least you need to remember 5 to 6 types if it is asked anywhere. So at least cover the zinc part, magnesium part. Otherwise, I'm 100% sure that you have gone through all the physiology lectures and biochemistry lecture, you will still remember few of them. So, but particularly, I will suggest you just remember one example out of all of them. So these are some of the mineral function. The first one is the metalloenzyme. Second one is mineral as a cofactor. For example, sodium, potassium chloride are involved in osmotic control, electrolyte equilibria, ion current, and gated channels. Similarly, magnesium is involved in phosphate metabolism. Then we have the function of the calcium. I just need to read all of them. I will leave to you, better you go through them, inshallah. If you need any question, please come back to me, we'll discuss. Similarly, copper is involved in enzyme cofactor, oxygen carrier, oxygen activator, and yes, iron metabolism. And these are some other examples, which is we are discussing about the minerals and their function as a cofactor, not as a part of the enzyme. So these are some of the metalloprotein or the proteins which have the mineral in their structure. So this slide is again very important. For example, we have the metallothionein, in which the function is the copper, zinc, cadmium storage and heavy metal buffer. Ferritin is involved in iron storage and iron buffer. Calmodulin is involved in calcium binding and allosteric regulator. Transferrin is an iron transport. Then with the selenoprotein, W is the selenium transport. Well, then we have the calbinin, which is calcium transport. So remember this slide is an important one and the easy one if you just need to remember this part. Okay, I think there are a lot of messages in the chat. I think this could be your attendance sheet. Okay. Okay, now this, I think I'm just finishing up the lecture, and this is the one of the easiest slide. What you need to remember here, for example, the chromium, some of them they have the toxicity, some of them they don't have the toxicity. For example, chromium, if it is deficient, it will result in possible impaired glucose tolerance. For example, fluorine, this is the source. Seafood, tea, fluoridated water, all these examples. Function is bone and tooth formation. Deficiency will result in predisposition to dental caries, possibly osteoporosis. Toxicity will involve fluorosis, mottling, and pitting of permanent teeth. Similarly, we go to iodine, iron, all of them have a level of deficiency, they have a level of toxicity. Now, the what you need to focus as a clinicians, yes, what you need to focus the clinicians sometimes any of a particular, when the deficiency start happening in some of the mineral diseases, we are not sure in the start. You move around maybe some kind of endocrine disorder, you move around maybe the symptoms are more closely, signs are more closely to some other disease. The ideal is you better ask for a biochemical estimation of a patient. Don't get suspicious, do it in the start. So similarly, when we discuss many of the cases in which, when especially the parents with the children, they come to you and they've been asking you for a kind of my baby is not well grown, all those kind of very basic questions. So normally we ask them to start up with multivitamins. Okay, we again forgot the mineral part. So remember that you have to be very particular. Minerals are very important, and it has to be aligned back with a proper, diagnosis based actually, but implementation for their proper concentration and sources. So then only the things could be revert back easily. Otherwise, if you focus only from your point of view without any evidence based, then the things will be more serious. So that's all. Thank you so much from me. And I'm sorry I just rushed because I was worried maybe my PowerPoint is not there. It's in the other computer. So, but I think we have covered majority of them rather than reading a little bit of part of the examples here. So if you have any questions, you're all welcome. Please. Do you have any questions?
Question, Prof.
We are already 15 minutes nearly. We have I think we finished quite early. If you still have any questions, please, you're welcome. Some of the other things which you need to highlight is that the essential microelements are only required in trace amounts. For example, iron, zinc, manganese, copper, cobalt, chromium. These are all the essential. And most trace elements are cofactor. This one we already covered. So we just revise a little bit quickly. We did discuss that the vitamins are different from minerals. Number one, we did discuss that we do have we have the atoms, we have the molecules, radicals, ions, all these things. They're all made of majority of them are made of essential minerals, and they need the minerals integrity in all of them. Then we remember that these radicals and these ions, they're also a part of our ICF and ECF, and if one of them are deficient, then our ICF and ECF composition can be affected, and it can give us a havoc in our body, in which the pH will be altered and a lot of other malfunctioning will happen, followed by the change in the pH physiologically. Okay, then we did discuss about the concept of metalloenzyme, and we did discuss about metal activated enzymes. When we talk about the metalloenzyme, we said these are the enzymes or proteins, normally the enzymes, which have minerals in them as an integral part of them. That's what we call the metalloenzyme, and we did go through some of the examples. Then we have the next part, which we said the mineral activated enzymes. These are the enzymes which doesn't have the mineral inside them, but they need the mineral as a cofactor for them. So then after that, we have discussed that if, for example, we have the minerals which are needed more than 100 microgram per day, they are called the macro elements, and the one which are needed less than 100 microgram per day, they are called the, sorry, milligram per day, they are called the trace element, or the other name of trace element is micro element. So then we did discuss, after covering the concept of macro and micro or trace elements, we covered the concept of the deficiencies and toxicity of these minerals, in which we did mention that there are different minerals on your left side in this table. We mentioned their function and their the sources, and we did discuss what will happen if there's the deficiency or toxicity. This slide is very important from the MCQ point of view sometimes. So remember, you have to go through all of that personally. You have to read all of them. Yes, the other things which are important is examples of metalloproteins, the difference between metalloenzyme versus metal activated enzymes, their definitions, and then some of the examples of minerals as a cofactor, inshallah. So I think that is all from me. If you have any questions, I'm still around. Few minutes, you can ask me the questions. Are you all okay? Did you understand?
Yes, Prof.
I'm sorry, I was always, normally I take a long time. This time I was but finish early, yeah. So please, any questions which come to your mind, please you can ask. You can even post your question in the chat box. I not mind if you cannot ask on the mic. It's okay. But my suggestion, like always, is that please ask. If you really want to learn. So normally I don't have much time with all of you. I'm not getting much lectures, especially in biochemistry. Because I've been into research and all of the things. Happy. Still, you can post the question. I will be very happy to reply, inshallah. Because looking at the learning outcomes is a very basic kind of lecture. Tapi, remember when we talk about the structure of the proteins, remember we do have, when we talk when we see in the books, we have the proteins with the different domains, structural domain, we have the binding domain, all those kind of things, the crystalline structure of proteins. So even all these things, you actually need a minerals to basically come in and bind at different level, and then it start twisting the whole protein. It move the whole protein in a different way. So even for the not only the structure of the protein, but also the integrity and the proper molding of the protein, in which it can go through different processes. It can go through into different cell pores, nucleopores. Again, the minerals are very important. So minerals have a very integral and very serious role, but because majority of the cases we mix minerals with vitamins, and there is actually the havoc happened, in which instead of treating the mineral issues with the minerals, we are actually treating the issues with the vitamins. We get, a mix up with both of these things. That is the reason in the start I have to mention there's a difference between both of them. That is very important. So the take home message is that minerals are very important. If you want a proper treatment for anyone in any disease, remember you have to diagnose it first. If you don't know the diagnosis properly, you cannot treat it properly. So make sure if you are suspecting someone with a mineral deficiency, for example, or you're suspecting someone with a like a multiple mineral deficiency kind of stuff, remember that you have to diagnose it first. Biochemically you get them estimated, then only you can basically treat them. Otherwise you if you just look at the sign and symptoms only, not in all cases, yes, but some majority of the cases, no, not in all but majority. So in that case you are basically treating something as with something else. So this is the whole take home message, inshallah. So I think could be fine for all of you. So I hope if no question, we can stop our session, inshallah, and you can all have a rest again. And then if any question, you can still post to me. Is it okay for all of you? Okay, so you and any questions? If any question you have, I'm still around. Please ask. Or if you want to leave, if you all want to leave, just write in the chat box that I think no question, then we can even switch off the session for a while. Okay, so if no questions, inshallah, we will. You're all welcome, inshallah. Then inshallah, we can stop our session for now. And please take care. Have a small nap before the next class. And inshallah, enjoy your time. Take care, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much.
Take care too, bro.
Bye.
Thank you.